Here we go. Good morning. This is Acquisition Assist again, Martin Godfrey Lehido, and I'm delighted to introduce my colleague on the team. And could you sit a bit to your right, please, Audrey? That's it. You're in the center of the screen. So my colleague is senior colleague, one of our senior analysts is Audrey Nieuwhausen. Or if I say that with my Dutch accent, it's Nieuwenhuizen or Amsterdam accent. And she is a fully qualified accountant and has been with us for almost a year now. So, Audrey, thanks for coming on. I appreciate that. So, tell us where were you born and grew up?
So, I was born in Zimbabwe, in the middle of the country, and
Yeah.
spent my life in Zimbabwe, most of my life in Zimbabwe. And I married a local farmer, and we ran a farming enterprise for 13 years. It was a very big operation. We had 12,000 acres of land,
Oh,
and yeah, we
what
had
were
a
you
thousand
growing?
head. So we had a double cropping rotation. We did maize and then sorghum, also other cereals,
Hmm.
and then winter wheat. We
Yeah.
had night storage dams for all the irrigation, and we also had 1,000 head of breeding cattle, which I ended up running because my husband was busy with the cropping and he didn't really have time. So I took that on and ran the breeding herd. We also then we were the only ones with a combine harvester when we first started farming.
Hmm.
And so he ended up doing contract combine harvesting
Yeah.
around the country. We had our first drought, and so he bought a drilling rig, and then we started drilling boreholes for ourselves. And then the neighbors said they also wanted. So we ended up having that second business of a drilling rig, and he would go around and he ended up drilling all over the country with the drilling rig until it became a popular thing and other people brought in drilling rigs. But he
Wow.
was quite clever in having the initiative to do things from the beginning.
Hmm.
So we had the farming business for 13 years until Mugabe and his henchmen took the farm over. So we were given a
I was
week
going to
to
ask
get
about
off.
the Mugabe factor. Yeah.
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 So we were fortunate enough that we were actually given a week to get all our equipment and cattle and belongings off the farm.
A
I
week.
was doing the, yeah,
A week.
a week, yeah. So I was doing the books for the farm. I had been taught by my father-in-law, who had started the business with his son, and then the father-in-law retired. So my husband took over
Husband.
the
Hmm.
business, and he was a very astute businessman. And he could run his finger down a column of numbers and fill in the number at the end. He was very clever. So he taught me how to do books.
Hmm.
And then when we lost the farms, I then got bookkeeping jobs. And in Zimbabwe, because there is a lack of skilled personnel, people, I was able to get really good jobs as a bookkeeper, but there's a level because you don't have the qualifications.
Yeah.
So I was then given an opportunity to go across to Ireland and become an accountant. So I worked um, in all sorts of different industries in Dublin while I became an accountant.
I
So I
must ask, I
qualified there.
mean, in that week where you had the week to remove
Yeah.
the cattle and all your equipment, how could you move it in a
So
week to a neighbour's farm?
yeah. So we were surrounded by resettlement, which is all the locals who were given patches of land.
Yeah.
And that was some of the things that we did. We had a cash crop of cabbages that we grew to feed the locals. They came across and bought. We also had live chickens, so we sold those as well to the locals. And so we didn't really have neighbors, but his sister was running a farm um, a good 2 hour away, 1.5 to 2 hours away. So we ended up taking a lot of stuff there, and then the cattle a lot went to market.
Yeah.
And then we got another farmer who was doing cattle as well. So we asked him if he would take on our cattle.
Yeah.
So yeah,
What a
it was,
traumatic experience.
yeah, yeah,
Terrible.
yeah. And so the marriage didn't survive the chaos of that. And I ended up then going across to Dublin and putting myself through night school, working for a whole different range of businesses, from an
Yeah.
electrical business to an American. It was a huge corporation, WebSense, and they sold software as well as
Mhm.
hardware. There were some computers
Mhm.
that they sold.
Of course,
I
Ireland
then,
is a favourite because of the tax
yeah,
situation, tax
yeah.
beneficial. I think Google is based there, aren't they? And
Yes. Yeah, we
others.
drove past, we would on the train go past Google, and I
Mm,
think Yahoo is also there. Yeah.
yeah, yeah, yeah,
So yeah, I then decided to come back to Zimbabwe because staying in Ireland was not an option. I went over there as a student,
yeah.
but to then stay there, the Irish don't like foreigners.
There's some demonstrations going on now, isn't there?
Yeah, they lose your paperwork if you try and stay. And anyway, so I decided it was actually time to come home. We were wanting to, they kept talking about being compensated for the farms. We still haven't been compensated, but there was talk about compensation for the farms. So we were then going to set up something else, my daughter and I, and we ended up staying in Zim. We gave it 10 years. We were going to stay. I worked in all sorts of different industries in Zimbabwe, from a waste service company to logistics, a trucking, a really big trucking company that was
Hmm.
collecting stuff from Durban going all the way up to Congo. I worked for a construction company, and they have projects all over Zimbabwe. Pharmaceuticals. There was just all sorts of industries that I worked for in
Hmm.
Zimbabwe, and having that knowledge of working for SMEs is really helpful for where I'm at now,
Yeah,
because when I get to speak to the vendors, when I look at the accounts, you can understand the business
yeah.
because I've done quite a lot of these different industries.
At what point did you move to South Africa?
Uh, 2024.
Okay, and why?
Because there is politically, Zimbabwe is very insecure. The government only has one party, and if you stick your head up above the ground and try and protest, uh, you don't survive. So there is no accountability. Whereas in South Africa, you have lots of different parties, and
Yeah,
they're all pointing fingers and making you accountable, and you have to do, the right thing, because there are a lot more parties and there's accountability.
yeah,
They
yeah.
still do a lot of things that they're not supposed to, but it's a lot better because you can't get away with it.
Okay,
It is exposed. And
yeah.
also, you have collection still of rubbish. You still have electricity. You still have water in your taps here in South Africa. You don't have that in Zimbabwe. Your electricity is on at night, and then it's off during the day because they don't have enough. And there's no
Okay,
water in the taps. So
okay.
things are just breaking
That's a
down.
pretty good explanation why to move there. So coming back to the some of the businesses you've worked in,
Yeah.
um, uh, what do you think with you both in Ireland, in Zimbabwe, and South Africa? What do you think what are the most important things you think you've learned as a finance person and a business person?
People are so important in a business, especially with a SME. You, as the bookkeeper or accountant, you are also the PA to the boss. And you have to juggle all these balls, being the bookkeeper, being the PA, making sure that your team who's underneath you are happy and everybody is aware of what's going on, because they don't like change. People don't like change. And so if you have things that are going a bit wonky, and in Zimbabwe, things were always going a bit wonky because government would change rules and regulations, and everybody would
I love
be
the term
in a,
wonky.
mm, yeah, they were going to panic. How are we going to cope with this? So it was just being aware of what the regulations were, making sure that your staff were happy and coping with the circumstances, and then being able to relay to the boss um, what you considered to be the best course of action going forward and how to deal with it.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's and being a lot of the small businesses tend to have a lot of entrepreneurial spirit. They
Mm.
diversify and make things happen, and so it's very interesting doing business in
I'm
Zimbabwe.
sure you've learnt a lot working with those entrepreneurs and the mistakes that we all make and the things that
Well,
they do right and so
I
on.
had just qualified. I mean, I had been doing a lot of work as a bookkeeper before, but I had just qualified as an accountant when I moved back to Zimbabwe. And my first job was working for Food Lovers as the finance manager. And I had the worst job ever. You realize why you are taught all of these procedures that need to be put in place because they had none of it. And
Mhm.
the things that were going wrong in that business, and they were trying to sell it, and they had insisted that it needed to be audited first, and we had to get the accounts up to date. There was 3 years that they hadn't done it, and it was hectic trying to get that business up to scratch, ready to hand over for
And did it
audit.
sell in the end
It did sell. It did sell.
for a price that the vendor was happy with?
Yeah, yeah.
Mm.
So, but
Okay.
it took us a lot of extra hours and overtime to get that business ready for audit
But
again.
this is a common story, isn't it? Many SMEs are not really prepared for sale. They don't understand, how what the level of diligence, the level of scrutiny that's going to happen to their business,
Yeah.
both at the commercial end, the financial end, and also the legal end. So it's quite common. So coming up to date, and as I say, we're delighted to have you on the team. We are focused on purchases in the United Kingdom, but our team is very international, and I love that. We're spanning the globe almost.
Yeah,
Uh,
we are.
we are,
Yeah.
especially as we have several excellent clients who are hailing from Zimbabwe, Nigeria. I don't think we have anybody from
Cameroon?
South Africa.
No, no.
Ghana possibly coming up soon. So yeah, I mean we're an international bunch. So tell me more about business, your experiences with acquisition assist. What have your most important learnings been?
I've
Uh,
really enjoyed working here and I have learned so much. You know, being an accountant, I can say, okay, I know SMEs, but there's not everything that you know. So I had very little knowledge of mergers and acquisitions. And I have learned so much sitting in with you and Nick and how you analyze a business so quickly and can say, okay, well, this is what the value is,
mm,
and this is how much we would be able to pay on day one. So it's been real eye opener for me, and I've enjoyed it so much. I've enjoyed meeting my clients and getting to know them and helping them on their journey.
mm,
So that is what I've enjoyed, and it's so diverse because you have some that are interested only in fire and safety business, and others are
yeah.
wanting, you know, a cleaning business, and there's somebody else who wants a construction or an engineering. So there's never a dull moment. There's always something that somebody else.
And say that again.
We do have a few guys who are looking for a unicorn. And they're wanting a business that I have never heard of before or considered before. And so that has been challenging. And we have managed to get him to look at other options.
Yeah.
So he's coming around to
Well,
looking at.
that brings me on to my last question, or possibly another question, and that is that what advice would you have for current clients of Acquisition Assist and prospects who may be considering using our services? What advice
So
would you have?
don't confine yourself and say, this is what, unless like we have got one client who's already in that industry and he wants to buy more of those similar kind of businesses. But if you are coming in and you don't really know, you have an idea, say, okay, I like construction and I'm a builder, then yes, but also be open to something else that might be construction related. So um, maybe not actually building, but maybe supplying to the builders or something on the sideline which is actually a really good business, which I have noticed that there are sometimes sideline businesses
Mm,
which aren't exactly what you have said you would like to do, but could be complementary to
yeah.
the construction
In
business.
other words, be a little bit flexible about
Yeah, be
the
a little bit
sector that you
flexible.
want to get into. Yeah.
Yeah. And then what they do is I send them the sheet and they have a look. And while they're on that platform, they're looking at other things and say, can we have a look at this one as well? And it's completely off topic, but
Mm,
we'll have a look at it.
yeah.
But what you also need to consider is if you're into engineering, and we have got some customers who are into the engineering, and you want to go into care homes, there is a problem with that because you've got no experience.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then the client doesn't want to sell to somebody who's an engineer because what do you know about care homes? And you don't have any experience. How are you going to run this business effectively? This is their baby that they're handing over because they're retiring, and they don't really want to sell it to someone who has no experience in it.
Yeah, I
So,
mean, I would say, we've had experience. I've had experience of buying businesses that, are not, the client doesn't have experience, and I myself. But that's down to the client then has to be very clear that they have sufficient general business experience
yeah,
to be able to handle a business that
yeah.
they don't know. I mean, at the end of the day, yeah, but I totally agree. For many vendors, that can be an obstacle. What about your last word, if I may, on the actual vendor meetings where you've accompanied many clients? Your advice and counsel to potential clients in that respect. So we're talking about Audrey coming on and supporting a call with a vendor. What are your views
Yeah.
and experiences in that area?
So basically, what we are looking for the client to be friendly. What you're doing is you are sizing up the vendor and the vendor is sizing up you. Are you going to be someone he is willing to go into business with? If he doesn't trust you, if he doesn't like you, then he's not going to want to sell his business to you. So don't come in all officious and I've been with this big corporation and I know how to do business. When a SME is a small guy who's built it up from ground roots up, and he wants someone who he can trust. So try and be friendly and engaging and ask him about the business and how did he, it's on the IM, but ask those questions. How did you get started? And, why did you get started? And
Mm,
just be friendly and engaging so that the vendor is happy to sell it to you. I've had some guys, some of my clients who've come in and have been so officious and so how are the statistics and how are the profits and blah 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 that the vendor in the middle of the meeting has said I have taken it off the market because the guy couldn't read the room and he just put the guys back up and talking
yeah,
about profits and how he was going to improve the business.
yeah.
So yeah, it needs
It's
to be
building
friendly.
rapport, especially the first and even well,
Yeah,
all the meetings. But you must
yeah,
always build rapport all the time, and not just with the vendor when it comes to the financing. Anybody in finance, one must always bring out your best interpersonal skills.
yeah.
So you're basically looking to charm and get on with everybody. And I have a client I'm thinking of right now who's doing a 2.2 million pound business, and he's absolutely like that. He's got great interpersonal skills.
Yeah,
Everybody is treated with great deal of politeness. Always remember to say please,
and
always,
thank you.
and
Yeah,
thank you, of course.
yeah.
That's very important. So thanks very much, Audrey. Any
You're
last
welcome.
word you'd like to spread to the universe?
Come and join us and we'll help you to get your business going.
There you go. There's no guarantees that we can do that, but
No
if anybody
guarantee.
can do it, we'll do it with the support
We'll
of
do the best that we can to
we'll do
get
the
you
very best we can for
signed.
you. There
Yeah,
are unforeseen things. We never know exactly how motivated the vendor is.
yeah,
And we never know exactly how your negotiating skills will be, but we support you in that as well.
yeah.
The financing, people often ask me all the time about the financing. Actually, that's of lesser concern. We have our in-house broker, John Offord, who has a black book with hundreds of sources of finance. So it is, if it's financeable, we can do it. But the interpersonal side is down to you, the client, or the prospect.
Yeah.
I'd
It's
just like to
important.
say thank you very much, Audrey. I look forward to
You're welcome.
meeting with you in August.
Yes.
And it's been a pleasure to have you on so far. I hope they serve fish and chips in the hotel. And
I'm
yeah,
sure.
onwards and upwards. The business is growing and we're taking on more clients. And it's been a pleasure to work with you. Thank you very much.
Thank you. It's been a pleasure too.